Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're taking a look inside Russia's internal defense mechanisms.
Yeah, for the last couple of years, all the focus has, rightly been on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Right. But the pressure of this war is forcing these, well, profound changes deep inside Russia itself. We've got a whole stack of sources here: new laws, decrees, expert analysis.
And they all point to one thing.
Exactly. Our mission today is to figure out how the Kremlin is adapting to a war that has, for all intents and purposes, come home.
And you have to start with the timeline. I mean, this was supposed to be a quick war, weeks maybe. Now we're approaching 4 years.
And those initial security assumptions are just completely out the window.
Completely. This long war has exposed these huge, really embarrassing vulnerabilities deep inside the country, and it's forcing the state to tighten its grip on everything.
So let's pull that apart. We're looking at measures that signal the Kremlin is settling in for what one analyst called a prolonged semi-military existence. It's about making the crisis feel normal.
Institutionalizing it.
Let's get into it. So the first thing we have to acknowledge is this new reality, right? Moscow is no longer some insulated fortress.
Not at all. The war isn't happening 1,000 miles away anymore.
No, you're seeing it in these deep strikes. We're talking about Ukrainian drones hitting key energy facilities, oil refineries, industrial plants almost daily now.
And not just infrastructure. We've seen successful operations that have assassinated high-profile military figures deep inside the country.
A level of vulnerability that was, it was just unthinkable 2 years ago.
And the response to that has been really, really revealing, especially in its priorities.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what's fascinating is how uneven the defense is. The state has been pretty successful deploying dense air defense systems.
Okay.
But they're very localized. They're protecting the elite zones. Think Vladimir Putin's secluded residence in Valdai or, the Rubliovka neighborhood where the political and financial elite all live.
Right, so it's about protecting the power base, the people who keep you in power.
Precisely. Those places are almost certainly safe. But if you look at the rest of the country, it's a completely different story.
Because Russia is just vast.
It's huge. Hundreds of oil refineries, industrial plants, all spread across 11 time zones. You simply can't afford financially or logistically to defend all of them.
And those are the backbone of the economy and the war machine.
Exactly. So they've been hit again and again because the authorities have to make these hard choices about what's actually mission critical to defend.
Okay, so if you can't build a comprehensive air defense shield, you have to shift strategy. You have to focus on physical security on the ground.
Which brings us to this first major piece of strategy.
The presidential decree. It's all about guarding those vulnerable refineries and other sites. But here's the balancing act. They have to get more manpower without launching another mass mobilization, which was
Deeply unpopular, catastrophic politically.
So how did they do it?
This is really the core of their internal security strategy right now. The decree authorizes the deployment of reservists to guard these key sites.
Reservists.
Yes. The official line is that this lets them tap into a pre-existing pool of about 2 million people without having to declare a fresh, politically toxic general mobilization.
Wait, hold on. So if they activate, say, 1 million reservists to do guard duty, doesn't that just free up 1 million other professional soldiers who are doing that duty to go fight in Ukraine?
That is the essential insight.
So it's just a semantic trick. It's mobilization by another name.
Politically, they can claim they aren't drafting new men for the front line. But practically, it's a massive optimization of their forces.
And who are these reservists exactly?
These are people already in the system. They get a modest monthly payment. They do annual military training. But, and this is the key thing, until now, they've been spared fighting in Ukraine unless they volunteered.
So you swap a politically low-risk reservist into a guard tower, and that frees up a politically riskier full-time soldier for the front lines.
It's a textbook example of controlled mobilization. It uses an existing accepted structure to solve a security problem at home while also feeding the war machine.
Okay, that covers the physical side. Let's pivot to the digital battlefield. Because they're not just putting guards on refineries, they're also trying to tighten the technological screws.
Specifically to disrupt drone flights.
Which is where we get this really strange measure, this SIM card cooling off period.
Yeah, it's a highly specific, very technical defense mechanism they've had in place since November 10th. The rule is pretty simple.
What is it?
If you're a mobile user returning to Russia from abroad, your connection is just automatically blocked, frozen, for a full 24 hours.
A whole day with no service. That seems extreme. What's the logic there?
The technical logic is actually pretty robust. It's designed to stop time-sensitive drone operations that need immediate access to civilian networks.
Ah,
Kiev's forces have been very successful using, off-the-shelf commercial drones. And those drones often use regular 4G or 5G networks to send back telemetry, video, control signals.
so an operative crosses the border and needs immediate cell service to launch or guide a mission that's happening right then. But a 24-hour block means that window
Yeah, precisely. It creates a dead zone for immediate covert ops that rely on that seamless civilian connectivity.
But the real-world impact must be chaotic for ordinary people.
Oh, it is. It's caused a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
But what's even more telling is that people in border regions like Skupskov near Latvia and Estonia,
Yeah.
they're complaining their connections are being mistakenly frozen.
Oh.
The system thinks their phone jumping between cell towers is them re-entering Russia, so it just cuts them off.
Wow. So a high-level security measure ends up creating this new daily friction for regular citizens who have nothing to do with any of it.
It absolutely does. It's a perfect example of state control tightening in the digital space, and the cost is convenience and, sometimes necessity for the average person.
When you put them together, it really does signal this deeper layer of state interference. It feels like they're preparing citizens for more sacrifices.
And that connects directly to the broader political messaging. They're actively managing expectations. The political expert Andrei Kolesnikov analyzed this, and he argues Russia is consciously acclimating its people to a prolonged semi-military existence.
Normalizing the hardship.
Exactly, because the war is dragging on and the economy is starting to stagnate under all the sanctions.
And to reinforce this message of shared sacrifice, the Kremlin is using, well, all the tools in its toolbox. Kolesnikov points to this VTSIM survey.
Right, the state-controlled polling agency.
So we should probably view its data as a tool to shape public opinion, not just measure it.
That's the key. The survey claimed that almost 70% of Russians were ready to tighten their belts to defend their country. The number itself isn't really the point.
The message is the point.
The message is the point. It's a way to prepare society for a deteriorating economy. You frame austerity as a patriotic sacrifice, and you shift the blame for the economic pain onto an external threat.
And what's so critical is that they're pushing this message while showing absolutely no signs of softening their war aims.
That's the paradox, isn't it? They're demanding more and more sacrifice at home while maintaining this incredibly hardline position abroad. Former President Dmitry Medvedev just said the war will continue until Russia reaches its goals.
Which are still undefined.
Exactly. So that maximalist position abroad necessitates these really harsh domestic measures to sustain a long fight, a fight whose costs are being passed directly to the public.
Okay, let's shift to the most severe measures of control. We're talking about psychological pressure, legal deterrence. The state is relying more and more on pure intimidation.
Especially with this drastic increase in the penalties for sabotage. This is less about physical defense and more about creating a pervasive atmosphere of fear to stop any kind of internal dissent.
And the severity here is it's a major shift.
It's a dramatic shift. They've introduced penalties for sabotage that go up to lifelong sentences. Some analysts have even called them Stalin-era style sentences. The psychological impact of that is just immense.
And maybe the most disturbing part of this is how they've changed the age of criminal responsibility.
Absolutely. They've lowered it for acts of sabotage from 18 all the way down to 14.
14 years old.
And on top of that, a life sentence now applies to anyone who involves a minor in an act of sabotage. I mean, we are talking about rolling back basic protections for children and openly justifying it as a wartime necessity.
So we should probably contextualize this. Why do they feel this is necessary? Ukraine has been encouraging these guerrilla-style tactics inside Russia, right?
Yes, this isn't an abstract threat for them. There have been consistent attempts to blow up ammunition depots, oil pipelines, railways. It's a constant low-level internal conflict.
And the Kremlin's narrative is that minors are being specifically targeted for this.
That's their primary justification for the legal harshness. They accuse Kiev of orchestrating and financing these operations, of paying Russian teenagers, often through apps like Telegram, to carry out these acts of disruption.
And this leads us to a really shocking number. Russian courts have convicted at least 158 minors on terrorism and sabotage-related charges since the war began.
158. That number shows a massive, focused state effort to crush any internal resistance, even if it comes from young people.
And the official rhetoric, it's not trying to hide it.
Not at all. It's incredibly stark. You have Kirill Kebanov, who's on the Presidential Human Rights Council,
A human rights official.
a human rights official defending the jailing of minors. He called it a necessary measure for the current moment, given that we are a country at war. He is basically confirming that the state's wartime footing now overrides any previous protections for children.
It's a message of zero tolerance.
And that message goes through the entire justice system.
So if we pull all of this together, the reservists, the blocked SIM cards, prosecuting 14-year-olds, the picture that emerges is of a state just methodically tightening its grip on everything.
Yeah, they're not preparing for the war to end. They're preparing the population and the country's infrastructure for a very long, grinding conflict.
And that expectation of a marathon, not a sprint, is really underscored by one historical fact.
It's a powerful one. This January, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine will officially outlast the entire duration of its fighting in the Second World War.
Wow.
So the state is actively trying to foster a national mood, a legal framework that justifies these profound sacrifices, human and civil, that are needed to sustain this thing over the long haul.
These aren't just emergency measures anymore, are they? They feel like permanent fixtures designed to completely recalibrate the relationship between the state and its people for an indefinite conflict.
That's right.
So, considering that Russia's leadership says this war will continue until they reach their goals, the final question you should really be mulling over is this. What further steps might the Kremlin take at home to justify the immense cost, human and civil, required to sustain these far-reaching but so far completely undefined objectives?